All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here. We want to welcome you all to the regularly scheduled council meeting for the governing body of Spring Hill, Kansas on September 12th, 2024. If you guys are able to stand with me, Pastor Jay Sloan from Believe Church is going to do the invocation for us today.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We thank you for the breath that is in our lungs, the beating of our heart, Lord, the strength in our body, the health that we have. Lord, I do pray tonight specifically just for the governing body of the city council that you will bless them, give them wisdom in the decisions they need to make, give them a listening ear, a discerning heart and mind. Father, I do pray for those that are involved and have their concerns, whether it be economical or personal, that are brought tonight, that, Lord, there will be resolution and conclusion to those matters. I pray for the prosperity of this fair city, Spring Hill, God, that you will look upon our town and that you will touch it and that you will bring blessing to it. Lord, I do pray for economic, financial prosperity. Lord, I pray for safety for our citizens. Father, I do pray for tonight, that tonight will be a special night where ideas are brought forth and that, Lord Jesus, that you will be glorified through the things that are said today. We thank you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Feeback is out of town, but she is calling in on the line. Are you there, Mrs. Feeback?
I am.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mr. Peel,
Here.
Mr. Van Houten,
Here.
Mrs. Feeback.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum present.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. We did have a request to remove the only executive session we had on there. Other than that, are there any other requested changes? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to citizen participation. This is a time when the public can come in and speak about anything they would like to talk about. We only had one person sign up on the list, and Mr. Logan Moon, if you'd like to step up, and if you could just state your name and your address, please.
My name is Logan Moore. I am a resident here in Spring Hill at 606 West Smith Street. I am acting as the senior pastor of Ochiltree Baptist Church and kind of just wanted to come forward this evening and announce, some of you may have gotten the stuff in the mail, but we are relaunching as a church. We're moving on from Ochiltree Baptist Church to become Generation Church. And so with that, there is a pretty large change of philosophy, kind of how we do things, both inside and outside of the church. And really just kind of want to invite everyone as a community to be a part of that on October the 13th. And so we have quite a bit of stuff that is coming out. You might hear about it on the radio. You might see a few things on TV, probably not too much there. But I kind of want to give you at least an idea of how we are different, if I can. But basically, we've changed our mission, which was generally to bring people into the church. And ultimately, we're kind of moving away from that. Not to say that the church isn't important, but we really want to reach and be a service to the community. One of the things that we asked our congregation was, if we died tomorrow, would Spring Hill miss us? And ultimately, the consensus was no. Not to say that there might not be a tear in some eyes, but we really don't have much impact as it currently sits. And so we're hoping to change that. We've been involved with Brandon Stoffco to hopefully help some people with code enforcement that are unable to do things like that. We've served in the nursing home here. We've served in both nursing homes, actually. Trying to get out with the food pantry and really just trying to be a blessing to the community around us. We recognize that being a member of a church does not necessitate or is not necessary for salvation. And so we just want to be the arms, the feet, and the legs of Christ to go out and love on people, tell them that we're here if they need somebody, to help with things going on, or and help with spiritual matters. And so ultimately, that's just what I wanted to bring up tonight. You'll probably see me at least one more time, but that is on October the 13th is that relaunch day. Services start at 11, but that is for Generation Church. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to step up and say anything? Mr. Peterman?
Thank you. Bill Peterman, 19431 West 200th Street. I just wanted to make everybody aware that September is Childhood Cancer Month. And you're all family people. You all have kids. Can you imagine what it'd be like to go to the doctor? They can't figure out what's wrong. Go to the doctor. They can't figure out what's wrong. Go to the doctor. Oh, your child has cancer. Only 4% of all money collected or raised to do research goes to childhood cancer. 4%. That's not very much. So I'd like you guys to just take some time and think about childhood cancer. If something comes up, which I got a feeling that Culver's is going to do something here on one of the Mondays for childhood cancer. Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday is the Hope Gala, which is a real big thing. Last year we raised $1.2 million. It's not something that's just comes about. I mean, it's we've had a lot of kids in Spring Hill that have had cancer. And we need to do everything we can to help those kids and those parents. I mean, as a parent, you think this, why is it happening to me? Why is it, never seen it before, but there's a lot of us out there, a lot of people out there. So anyway, my granddaughter is 4 years cancer-free. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's a very, very important topic. I think probably everyone in this room has been touched by cancer in one way or another. My mother-in-law was just diagnosed a couple weeks ago with it. So yeah, it's definitely something near and dear. And for any of us, I know a couple of us up here that, that have kids that have, major health issues. It's no fun. My daughter doesn't have cancer, but I have had a daughter that had a double lung transplant, and it's no fun to see your kid in the hospital for months and months on end and not much you can do about it. So yes, definitely thank you for bringing awareness to that. Anyone else? If not, we'll go ahead and close citizen participation at this time and move on to consent agenda. These are items that the staff considers to be routine maintenance, but if there are any questions or comments from the governing body, now would be your time. If not, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Next, we'll move on to formal council action. The first item on the agenda is consider approval of an extension of the professional services agreement with Lamper Nearson for on-call engineering services. And Mrs. Abel, you have the floor.
Great, thank you very much. The next item before you is a request from staff to approve the contract extension with Lamprey Nearson for on-call engineering services. In 2018, the city sent out a request for qualifications for engineering firms to reply back for on-call engineering services. This was to support the city because they didn't have engineers on staff. Lamprey Nearson was selected as the on-call engineer for the city of Spring Hill. The initial contract was for a 3-year term. The contract also stipulated that the contract could be renewed for in 2-year increments. And so in 2022, after 3 years, the contract was extended. So Lamprey Nearson continued in that role. Here we are 2 years later. It's time to do it again. Actually, we're a little past time. So we are in the process of getting that done. Over the last 2 years, there has been a lot of changes here at Spring Hill. There's been a lot of staff turnover. The one constant has been Lamprey Nearson and Dan Miller. And they've done a fantastic job with continuing those services and providing that institutional knowledge, that engineering service. So we wanted to continue that consistency and that institutional knowledge during this transition. So Lamprey Nearson, since I've been here for the last almost, I think I just finished my week 7, so here we go. So after 7 weeks here, trying to transition into this role as the in-house city engineer, we need to continue having Lamprey Nearson on board during that transition to continue working on some of the active projects that they're finishing out and to continue to fill gaps where we need them to fill gaps. And I know Pat has used them a lot, Jacob's used them a lot, so we want to continue to have that institutional knowledge. They're very familiar with the city and the inner workings. So as I start to get into this role as city engineer, I'm trying to figure out what the best needs are for the city. Lane and I have been talking about doing an on-call, a massive on-call. This is specifically for hiring specialty engineers, traffic engineers, geotechnical engineers, construction materials testing. We're gonna hire an in-house construction inspector. So having a firm out there to test the materials as they're being put in our subdivisions, we want to provide that better quality of service, and we want to be able to have those direct connections. So we're working on trying to get a request for qualifications together so that we can hire these specialty engineers to help supplement what we're doing and what Lamprey Nearson has done and will continue to do. We'll have that RFQ released in mid-October, and we'll have the contracts ready for you guys in early 2025 for approval. My plan is to hire several engineering, architectural services, where we think we need traffic engineers, landscape architects, and such. We're going to model our RFQ off of what other cities have done. There's several small cities that are just like us that have the same struggles just like us. So we're going to use their information, their RFQ. And with that, staff recommends the approval of the contract extension with Lamprey Nearson for on-call engineering services. I am available if you have any questions.
How long is it gonna be extended?
So the contract extension is for another 2 years. And as we put in the policy report that there is a termination clause after 30 days. Lane and I are discussing how we want to fold Lamprey Nearson in with the other engineering on-call. We may try to get them synced in with the other engineering firms just so that everybody's on the same contract schedule and renewals and everything like that. So yes, it is for a 2-year period, but that might be subject to change.
Is there any changes in the rates?
Uh,
It does have current rates.
So every time that they provide a contract, it will have the current rates, as Dan just stated. One thing that we're going to do with the RFQ is give the engineering firms an opportunity to update those rates annually.
So basically, we have, at any point, we can give a 30-day notice to cancel the contract and then reset it if we decide to do that.
If that makes sense. So that's something Lane and I need to figure out if that's the best thing to do moving forward.
We plan to go out for the RFQ and then request everybody to submit again.
Okay. So the RFQ is basically gonna be able to allow us to have on-call relationships with
Multiple
multiple
different.
specialties.
Yeah, so if there's something that we need that's out of the ordinary, structural engineer, if we have a big retaining wall that we're building and we need a structural engineer to review that or do a design of some sort, then we'll have that on-call relationship. Survey was another specialty that I had on there. If we need something surveyed, then we can do that. This would be up to a certain dollar amount. We would still observe and adhere to the purchasing policy for the different levels. So we would have small task orders would be under this on-call, and then larger contracts we would take out for RFQ and that kind of thing for like the larger projects. But this is for smaller projects that we would need assistance on.
That way we'd already have a contract in place and we can just pull that specialty person in.
The intent would be similar to other things that we do. I think we do 3 years typically. And then about every 3 years, we do an RFQ again for those same services, so that we'd be basically on the same, across the board, whether it's for finance, for banking, or something like that. But we'd do about a 3-year RFQ process.
And it keeps our rates competitive as well.
Oh, yeah.
Is it just fee for service? Like, is that only time that the city's being charged, or is there a cost for just having somebody be on call?
No, there is no additional cost if we don't utilize the on-call. If we utilize them, then
Okay.
it would be based on the hourly rates. And we would try
Okay.
to, upfront of doing, because we'll have to do a task order with each time that we engage the on-call engineer. So we would have an estimate of what that would be with possibly an hourly not to exceed, is how we can design the task order so that we can at least engage
Control the
them,
cost a little bit.
have an estimate out there, and then they will charge us for the hourly rates as they work on those projects.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so it's anticipated that the transition will take about 2 years. And then as you become more familiar and stuff, then,
So
I mean,
the-
or do we just always have this?
So the RFQ itself for this massive on-call that I'm trying to do, I call it massive, we'll probably hire about 10-ish firms, but our plan is to send out the RFQ, the request for qualifications, here in about a month. We'll have that out on the street. We will get responses back, staff will review the proposals, and then we'll have the contracts ready for the city council to approve in January of 2025. So, here in about 4 months, we'll be available to start that on-call. So we could potentially be resetting Lamprey Nearson's contract if we wanted to sync it up.
There's no minimum that they need to do per year, like, or that we have to use them per year? There's no like cost associated if we don't use them at all?
That's correct. There would be no cost if there's no commitment to us to use them. The way that City of Liberty has theirs, it's pre-qualifications. So they've pre-qualified a bunch of engineering firms to work in these different specialties, and there is no commitment to the city to spend a minimum of $20,000.
Okay, that was my, main concern is like, there's a minimum we have to do.
We would
Find
spend,
something for them to do or whatever.
no, we wouldn't have, there wouldn't be a commitment to have them under a task order during that time. Whenever I was at Parkville, I designed exactly the same thing that I'm
Okay.
talking about. And unfortunately, there were some engineering firms, some architectural firms that we did have under pre-qualification that we ended up not using them.
Yeah.
But it was nice to have them just in case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Pat pointed out that I think we have numerous projects currently underway with Lamprey Nearson, so this contract helps get us through that time period. I think it's over 10. Yeah, there's 11.
Okay.
So this will help us get us through that transitional period, and then the RFQ will help us get on track of where we need to be as having on-call services for the smaller projects.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed whenever I was going through Lamprey Nearson's contract was for any subconsultant that they hire, so if they hire Merge Midwest to do their traffic counts, if they hire Claw Valley to do geotechnical work or anything like that, we're paying an additional 10% on top of what their subconsultant fee is. So this alleviates that middleman, and we contract directly with those consultants directly. So we get rid of that 10%. So it makes sense from a business perspective just to have those one-on-one contracts.
Any other questions or comments?
I had one, but I forgot. It wasn't huge, so, no, I think it's fine as far as, yeah, I mean, this just helps us avoid having to do an RFQ for every single project, whether it's small or large, so, I mean, obviously I like to use the RFQ process when we need to, but if it's $5,000, it's not really worth it to wait an extra 3 months or whatever.
Well, and the way I'll design the RFQ is we'll have a response, a one-page response where they tell us what their specialties are. And we might hire one engineering firm that does construction materials testing, structural and geotechnical. So we'll be able to have them for all three of those specialties and be able to utilize them. The other thing that I've talked to Lane about is having this designed as a 3-year contract with an option to renew an additional year. So, or I'm sorry, a 2-year contract with an additional 1-year extension. So in essence, it would be a 3-year contract. But if it's for whatever reason, it's not working out over 2 years, then we have that way to opt out.
Well, it looks
And
like this one had the built-in 30-day notice back in 19. Is that not commonplace, or is that something we just got lucky with?
No, there is usually a termination clause in any contract.
Yeah. So yeah, 2, 1, or 3 is fine with me. If you have that in there, I think we can, cut the tie if we need to. Type thing.
Protects us from
Yeah.
any major issues.
Yeah, I like that. So I would just say I'd want to see that in those, if possible. So I don't have any other questions, comments.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move to approve the engineering on-call service extension with Lamper Nearson and authorize the mayor and staff to execute the contract extension.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Thank you, Ms. Zabel. That ends formal council action at this time. We'll move on to a discussion item. And the first item on the agenda is charter ordinance regarding vacancies. And Mr. Lau, you have the floor.
I'm gonna keep it down here because I'd really like the focus to be on you all talking, but if you'd like me to get up, you can. I'm also self-conscious because I don't have a tie on. Because we're in the middle of a move. I don't want the public to see
I say I
that.
thought you looked weird.
Your back's to
Oh,
the camera.
yes. Yeah. It's what a terrible life to be
Nobody
between
in the
two
audience knew
houses.
you didn't have a tie.
Yeah.
Until now.
So, back up again, I've been working pretty closely with our city clerk on getting this one charter ordinance to handle all of these issues about filling vacancies. I think we're up to 4 or 5 now that we're repealing and just kind of bringing everything under one umbrella, which is good. Because the goal of this, to me, is to provide clarity for you all, for all of our successors, for our public, to be able to pull something up and quickly and easily figure out what's going on. The one hiccup in that approach was the suggestion of filling vacancies for shorter terms. So, for example, if somebody moved out of the city within their first year or 2 as a city council member, filling that spot just until the next regular election. There's a couple issues that pop up with that. One of them is if we keep that person, we have basically an early election for, I'm going to use Mr. Peel because he's the closest to me. If we have Mr. Peel's seat go up early, we can have the next person go in, have him up at the next regular election for a 4-year term, and then we get off of our 3 and 3 and start getting unbalanced. And the worst thing a city can do is try to put 5 or 6 people in at once because no one knows what's going on, and candidly, just a lot of swing. Sometimes cities need some stability, especially for long-term projects. So the workaround to that would be having somebody come in, and if there's 2 years left on the term, the replacement has to run for just a 2-year term, and everyone else that year is running for a 4-year term, which makes candidly kind of a mess of the election process. So it's a lot of work for the county on certifying. It's a lot of work for our clerk getting that all up. We start running into issues of how early we need to be to let somebody announce that they're running for a 2-year term to fill out. So if Brian goes out, his replacement comes in and there's 3 years left, we would make them run a year, 1 election cycle early, 2 years early for just a 2-year term. So somebody else could run against them for 2 years, and then you'd have a ballot where there's 3 races up for a 4-year term and 1 race up for a 2-year term. And it's a lot of voter education that goes into that. A lot of time and effort and clearing that up. So it's something we can do. Candidly, it looks a little bit like using a sledgehammer to get a fly. Of this is an issue, and it's happened a couple times recently, so it's very fresh in our minds, and we want to find a way not to have that happen again. But also, I think it might over legislate a little bit as far as we're getting too cute with our charter ordinance. And those are something we want to be a little more, maybe not broad, but they're not supposed to get changed much. They're like a constitutional amendment. So I want to throw it all to you all. I can provide my draft of what it would look like doing essentially offsetting elections where people have to run for a 2-year term. The cutoff would probably be February 1st or March 1st of an election year. So what it boils down to is if somebody is elected and leaves that office by February 1 of the following year, so it's kind of a 13, 14 month question, then we would have their replacement up for re-election again and serving a 2-year term. Once we get past that February, March of an election year, it's too late to tell somebody, you need to register for this upcoming election. It's too late to tell the public there's an opening for this election, people to run against them. We can't get them certified, so we would have to let them serve out the term. So this alternative of giving somebody an early election is great because, no one wants to be appointing a lot of people to serve these 4-year terms. It's unfortunate when we have to put somebody in 6 months into a 4-year term and they're there. No one likes seeing that, but having someone come in for the short term, there's a narrow area that's actually going to happen, which is really the first 13, 14 months of their term of a vacancy. So we can go forward with that. I'm happy to share that with you, but I wanted to talk to you about, are we completely married to the idea of we always want these early elections? Is there any interest in, part of it is we need to clean up something of what we've done in the past, making that more clear. If we just want to make it you sit in for the rest of that term, we need to make that change anyway, because the charter ordinances aren't super clear. So a change is coming. I just want to know how detailed you all want to get on this and how much you want to legislate options and alternatives. Because for everything that Glenda and I have come together, one of us says, oh, well, what about this? And then now I've got a 6-page charter ordinance and it was started as a red line and now it's mostly just red and it's a whole bunch of issues. Again, you pay staff, you pay Glenda and I to work through tricky issues and bring them to you. So we're happy to keep doing it. But before we ask our clerk to pull her hair out every couple elections, and before you ask me to do it, because I'm losing my hair, so please don't let me do it, I kind of want to have this talk with you of what are the most important parts of our election and succession plans? What are the most important parts of filling vacancies to you all?
I think to me,
Spencer,
sorry, Kristen. To me, I think it's make it as simple as possible and as easy for the public as possible. If you're trying to remember who has a 2-year, who has a 4-year, who you're voting for that might be a 2-year, might be a 4-year, I think it confuses the whole system. I think make it easy for the public, easy for you guys and staff and the clerk and everybody to know this is exactly how it's done. Less confusing as possible.
Are you saying that if a 2-year term, if a vacancy happened that created an opportunity for a 2-year term, that particular term would have to be run specifically for that position, as opposed to like right now, it's either 3 or 2, and the top 3 or top 2 get the spots.
Right, so there would be that same at-large election essentially, and then there'd be a separate election for people only running for that 2-year spot. We talked about, well, can we have the top 3 get the 4-year spot, and the 4th vote getter has to do the 2-year spot?
That was my idea.
It's an option, but it's just sort of messy. And then I've talked around, so I've pinged to some other cities. Some cities that had essentially that system have gone away from it because it's just difficult. There's a lot of fear. And candidly, this hasn't come to fruition yet, so it's just kind of a concern that 4th place vote getter will just say, well, I don't want a 2-year term. I wanted the 4-year term. And then they're just going to turn it down. Maybe, maybe not. It's one of those, like, we're getting into speculation. So we could try to do that. I just think, again, that still falls into the voter education of we need to make sure voters know, hey, whoever gets 4th is in this shorter term. It's a possibility. I will say that Leawood has essentially what we've talked about with the shortening up a term and having someone run for a 2-year term. It's how they fill vacancies. So I gave them a call, and they've never had to use it because apparently people never leave Leawood for one of the places. So that's kind of the only other city around here that does what we're looking at doing. My understanding was the city of Lawrence had always offsetting elections where there was always someone running for a 2-year term and a couple people running for a 4-year term, and they ditched that a few years ago. And their city staff just felt it was kind of getting unwieldy and people were really confused and it was making ballots difficult. Again, I have faith in people that adults over the age of 18 can go to the ballot box and figure out who's running for 4 and 2-year terms. But it's just going to be a lot more work to get that education out there so people know what they're doing. But if that's what we want to do, we'll do it. But if there's sort of that, we can go the straight, simple route, which is you fill the vacancy and it runs for the rest of that term that's being filled. And if you fill that vacancy a second time, it just keeps going for that 4-year term at a time. It keeps everything in sync, keeps everything straightforward. We can kind of change it up a bit and see how it works and go back. But the one thing we don't want to do is be changing charter ordinances every 4 years on vacancies, especially, because then it just looks like we're legislating to get our friends in or out.
I feel like the most important thing is to make it clear exactly what our ordinance say, exactly what the law is. So there's no looking at it and saying, well, I'm interpreting it this way, I'm interpreting it this way. Make it very clear.
Yeah.
And eliminate all the confusing language out of there.
I've been on the side of, I'm with either Brian's recommendation or I know you and I found the Leawood. And I do like that myself because I think the person who gets appointed, say, in that position would have to run for that one. And if if everybody's okay with it, nobody will run against them and they'll keep it. If somebody wants to go against them, they'll have the opportunity to do it. I can't imagine somebody would put their application to be up here and then not go for the 2-year after. So I'm okay with that. I don't know, like I said, I'm not in the back end, so for you, Glenda, it might be a real pain. But I would be willing to say, hey, I like Brian's idea too, because that's one thing that we talked about was just saying top 3 or whatever, or top 2 gets that one, and then whoever comes in that next place gets the 2-year.
Yeah.
But yeah, jacking up the 4-year and having multiple, I don't think that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I think that's the worst way to do it.
Yeah.
Candidly, thinking it over, Brian's idea feels like the easiest, but in what I was talking, so I talked with Fred Sherman a bit, who's the election commissioner for Johnson County. I haven't really touched base too much with Miami County, and we didn't touch on that, but Fred gave me quite a bit of information. I feel like that one might actually be the most difficult one to pull off, just because there'd be a lack of guidance.
Yeah, that one's probably, to me, would be less informative to people, because they'd say, well, why is this person I voted for only get 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Where if it's a specific position, I would think it's gonna be separate from the at-large, so it would be a little bit clearer as far as somebody who just shows up and hasn't looked at anything.
Right.
They're gonna say, okay, well, these people are running for 2, these people are running for 4. They may not know why it's happening, but they'll know exactly what they're voting for. So that
I mean,
would be,
yeah, the fourth place vote getter getting a 2-year term would make a lot of sense if we had like a ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
But we're not going there.
yeah, since you just go total votes, yeah.
Well, and essentially the person that gets the 2 years is not going to know that they get 2 year until it actually happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
They could be thinking, oh, I'm getting a 4-year term, and then they're
Yeah.
like, oh, dang, it's only 2 years.
Well,
But I'd venture to say the people running would know, I mean, they'd
Right.
figure that out.
I think that's part of being an informed candidate too,
Right.
is that, if you're gonna become a candidate, that's information you should know.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying they wouldn't know it. I'm saying they wouldn't
know going
until
into it,
election
yeah,
night
until
how,
after.
how long they're going to serve.
But they should know when they sign up to run that there's a possibility you could only get a 2-year term depending on what the results are.
Hey, Spencer,
Uh-huh.
what was your latter option that you said? Is that the one that you were explaining that somebody would come in, they would get appointed, and they would stay in there up until an election would come, correct? And
Right.
then we would I think I like that one.
Yeah,
I think
so
that one is
the important thing we're doing is, one, we're making it very clear that we're never going to call a special election to fill a vacancy.
Yes.
That costs the city a tremendous amount of money. So that's our option. That's our biggest goal. Yeah, so what Leawood does is that option, which is if I move out of the city within the first year or so of my term, the mayor will appoint someone to fill that vacancy, and then that person who's appointed has to go up for election at the next regular city election.
Yeah.
If they want to continue.
Yeah.
If they want to continue, and if they don't want to continue, then there's an open election
Then
for
it's just
two
a
people.
vacancy that people run.
And if no one goes for that election, then we're just appointing somebody else for the last 2 years, and that kind of gets messy. But, which is the downside to that approach of what if they don't want it. We've had people in the past not interested in doing positions for the whole 4 years, so that could be an issue here. But yeah, it just makes the ballot certification and the signing up a little trickier, maybe a lot trickier. And it just puts a lot of pressure on you all and staff in the city to make sure we're really educating voters on why they're seeing a different ballot than they ever have. You know, people that might have been here 30 years, this will be the first time they see that.
Well, it's kind of like when there's like governors that have to have an off election. There's always like, okay, well, there's only 2 years left or 1 year left in this term. So there's, I mean, I think it's people who have voted for a while will have, okay, well, I've seen this a time or two. I know I have, and I'm not as old as a lot of the people that vote, right? Was it most people that vote are a lot older, right? So it's, those people are gonna be good, and then people who are new to it are gonna say, okay, well, this is kind of just how it is. So I'm not too concerned on the voter side. I mean, I think if it's doable on the staff side, I would like to go that route. But, like I said, I'm okay with going Brian's if that's a lot easier.
I think my biggest goal is like giving the public the opportunity to vote on a position when there's that much left of it.
Yeah.
More than half of it left.
Exactly.
You know, if we put out a specific 2-year term and nobody wanted to run for it and it was just vacant, then the public had their option, they had their opportunity. That's what happened, then it has to be appointed again. That's really kind of where I'm coming at this is we've had such a number of frequent 12 to 14 month vacancies occur recently in the last 6 years or whatever.
I was gonna say, I mean, it started even before the
Yeah.
last election.
So giving the public the opportunity, if that happens, to put somebody in there for 2 years is my biggest goal. Give them an opportunity to have a say on that. I thought the easiest way to do that was if you're fourth place or third place, then you get the 2-year spot. It will take a lot of education, but I really think if you have that early vacancy, we should put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Either specifically for 2 years or as a third or fourth place.
Yeah, and just because this is really only for super early vacancies because of our cutoff for election cycles. The other question is, it would be February 1 or March 1 are kind of the dates we're looking at.
Yeah.
We need to be, I think March 1's the latest, Glenda, that we could be to get it to the county.
It's like May 1st, I believe.
Okay, so
Yeah, but
May
you wanna
1.
give
So-
you some time.
County
Yeah.
On election, they will contact me in January, but I mean, by law, I don't have to certify until that May.
Yeah,
I think
so we want to
March
give
1st is
people
a
enough
happy medium.
thought.
It still gives you some time.
Yeah, do they want to run for this against the incumbent for this 2-year term? So we figured February, March makes sense to give them a couple months, and we don't want our city clerk to have to be in the position of waiting until April 30th every single year to
Yeah.
certify.
The only way this would get triggered is if a vacancy occurs in the first 14 months.
Essentially.
Of a term.
Yeah. Which is crazy because it's happened 4 times.
It's happened at
in
least
6 years.
twice, maybe 3 times now. Yeah.
Right, so, and there's a bit of recency biases because it's happened a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly.
Do we want to change our code for something that ideally shouldn't be happening all
Shouldn't
that
happen
much?
very often.
Yeah, but we know we need to change the code anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So if we're gonna change it, we might as well change it to account for, and we're gonna be a transient time. There's gonna be people moving in and moving out, so we just have to be conscious. I mean, obviously Leewood, like you said, has never used it. And we may never use it again. That's the funny part. We'll do it, and it could be the one and only time we use it, right? But it's one of those things that I think is worth it. So yeah, like I said, I'm fine with the Leewood way or the Brian's. Those are the two that
I like the consolation prize route. That's
too.
That's what I like.
What makes that difficult for you guys or the county?
I'll have to circle back. It seemed like that was a less favored option, but maybe I was reading too much into it. But I just think I don't know. I essentially went through every municipality in northeast Kansas, and Leewood does it this way. think there was someone else that used to. No one does it with we'll call it the Constellation Prize approach.
Yeah.
No one else had one. And candidly, a lot of these, like what we have now, most other cities that are smaller, the second and third class cities, all had the exact same language, which tells me at some point the League of Kansas Municipalities probably put out a form ordinance for everyone to do.
Yeah.
So we can try that and be the first. Typically being the first is kind of a risky spot because you don't want to be the first to mess it up. And if you're the first and you get it right, it's sort of a lose-lose. No, everyone says whoop-de-doo, you know?
Yeah.
So somebody else having it on the books helps, makes it a little easier, makes it less likely to get challenged.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with you on that, you know, if we're blazing our own trail on that as far as policy wise and procedure, that could end badly.
Yeah, why, if it's a good idea, why has nobody else done it?
I'm not sure that I want to be the guinea pig for it.
There's a lot of good things to be on the front end of, and I don't know that filling vacancies is something we need to be on like a cutting edge.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of like the Leewood one when we talked about it originally, because I'm like, well, somebody's already doing that. I may have not used it, but it's there. We can kind of follow what they've kind of like the thing we did with the chickens.
The overall hope is always that, you know, we're not going to have vacancies that happen in the first 14 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's the hope. Yeah.
So, I would be fine with the Leewood model.
Okay.
I like the other one better, but if we feel more comfortable with that one as a staff, I'm fine with that too.
Okay. Second question on charter ordinances for vacancies is the appointment process itself. Do you all want to see any changes in how that goes? For example, a lot of cities have a trigger period of there has to be some nomination to fill within a certain number of days. Some cities don't have it. That puts a lot of pressure on you all, since this isn't your full-time job, to like sometimes get on stuff when personal issues get in, or if people aren't interested. But do you want to see a 60-day, 90-day nomination time period? Do you want to see some, and this will probably be a city code bylaw thing rather than a charter ordinance, but we're going to do it all at the same time. Do you want to see a different process for how those are considered as far as interviews or more people involved, less people involved, staff being involved, not being involved? Any thoughts there? And if there's none, that's great. But
My personal opinion on the length of time is I don't think we should specify a certain time, and the reason why I say I would rather take longer amount of time and get the right person in there than only have, let's just say 30 days, only have 30 days and like, oh, we gotta hurry up and grab somebody and we get somebody in there and it doesn't work out well. I would rather, take a month, 2 months, 3 months, get the right person in the position. That's my personal opinion.
I think, I don't think you want to rush it, but I think 60 days should be plenty of time to, from the day that like the closing of the application process. So for me, I would say, we need to, because like we've had this one open, I feel like for too long, we need to figure that out. And especially when there's stuff coming up that we need to vote on. So it's just, we're made to have five of us, and so we need to do it quickly rather than wait too long. But I do, like 30 days I think might be too quick, because like you said, if you're trying to get people in here to interview, whatever. I do think adding in maybe like what we do for the appointments for city staff, where we bring them in to talk to them, like we did with a couple of those, might be a good thing too. But I'm not super hard sold on that. So
I think it makes sense to trigger the time period starting from the person's last meeting, so it's always uniform. That way,
Okay.
if we're late getting it published, then that's not.
So
People
if
aren't
you
saying,
do that, then I
"Oh,
would say
staff
90
sure
days
waited to
probably,
post that. Now they
Yeah.
get an extra 2 weeks."
We-
So
I'd be in
90
favor of
days from
90
their last
versus
meeting would
60.
be.
if it's from the day of the
From
actual,
the vacancy occurrence.
yeah.
Give
I would
us a
say
couple
90
weeks
days.
to get it posted.
Yeah.
Give it a month to get it out there, and that still gives you a month and a half,
6 to 8 weeks,
almost.
yeah.
And there's a few times where, we've either gotten no applicants or maybe one.
Right.
And so then we put it out again. So sometimes, that's what I'd be in favor of 90 versus 60 for that reason.
Okay. Yeah, we can do 90, and I can try to put in a catch-all of if no one applies, then
Yeah, you get another 60 days or something if nobody applies.
I'm fine with the timeline, the 90 days after
After
Last
resignation.
meeting.
when it occurs. I do think, I don't have a problem with our current process, but I think we should be more detailed in what our process is.
Yeah.
Whatever our process is gonna be. I do think that the mayor making the appointment is probably correct. we've set up our governing body here so that the mayor's position is elevated. You run for it separately. So I see that as one of the responsibilities of the mayor. If we wanted to put some language in there that said like, the council will have input, or however we want to create that process, but I think we need to have something that's gives us more guidelines than what we have now. Because I know for me, and I've asked about appointments, like I want to know if I have to say yes or no to someone, I want to get a chance to know who they are or learn about them or talk to them or maybe even interview them myself if I want to. Because I think that's important. And knowing, I'm going to vouch for someone that I think will do a good job. I want to know as much as possible about them. So,
Like you said, there's gonna be people we know, that we may have known from our previous life, but there's still, we're getting big enough now, there's people that I've never met and so I can't say, well, I'm not gonna say yes to somebody I don't know, and unless I get to talk to them and get a good feel for them. So like you said, whether it be, once you figure out who the mayor wants to appoint, we're able to talk to them and do that and make a decision. But yeah, I think I'm fine with the mayor making a decision of who they want to appoint and then us voting on it like we do now, but but as of late, it seems like we've been able to
I
talk to them,
also
so
like-
that's not a big deal.
if we could have some kind of public input element to it also, to where, because our citizens elect people
Yeah.
who are up here, and, if they want to be able to speak and have a voice about who an appointment should be or what they think about that, I'd love for us to be able to incorporate that too somehow. I think I read, it's been a while, but somebody in town, it might be Merriam, has like an actual interview process that they do in front of the council,
Yeah, I saw that too.
which I think that's maybe a bit much. But I do think the council members should be able to get to know them, and I'd really like it if we could get the public involvement somehow too.
If you get the public involved, though, you probably would have to like publish who applied. Do we want to do that?
Yeah.
Kristen, were you chiming in there?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
So that's where it becomes, if you want the public involved, then you have to
Yeah.
kind of
I think
publish it, but-
that's not a bad idea. I think it can
Yeah.
kind of get messy.
Yeah, I know it'll get messy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Get messy.
I'd also caution on that of, oftentimes you're gonna get the only people coming to get involved in that are the people that have a negative view, and most people who are positive aren't gonna take a time out of their night to come say,
Yeah.
I like Spencer, no further comments. I mean, and that's what we see with a lot of things, so, but.
Or maybe that's, at the point where the mayor has selected someone to appoint, and we publish that information before the meeting or in advance of a meeting to say, this is the person that it's gonna be. Here's their contact info. If you as a member of the public wanna contact them and ask them questions, here's your opportunity to do that. It gives all the council members the opportunity to do that as well. Just so you know who it's coming. Like when we have appointments, it's almost like a surprise of like,
Yeah.
who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? And if we can get that info out there in advance of, okay, we've gone through our process, here's who the mayor's gonna select, they'll,
Or
vote on
or
it.
like, these are my top two options.
Yeah,
People want to give
or that.
comments or whatever.
I mean, if we get 8 applications,
I don't
I don't
know.
think
I
we
mean,
need to do 8 full public interviews, that would be ridiculous. But,
That's what we get back into how much, what for fixing kind of the election process, they're only going to be there for 2.5 years at the most anyway. It's probably not as big of a deal. I think the bigger issues we saw on appointments were the people who had real long terms. And that's, that's half of the problem.
yeah, well, I think there's a transparency element to
Yeah,
it
yeah.
also.
No, for sure.
And that's where a lot of the frustration from the citizens has been over this issue, is that unless you're one of the people sitting up here or on the staff, you probably don't know who we're talking to, who's applied, who's being interviewed. Like,
Yeah.
all that is just guesswork.
Yeah.
And if that was more readily, easily accessible to the public, I think that is us doing our service to get
Yeah.
information to them.
I'm not opposed to any of it. I
Can
still know
I
how
ask
far we
this
can go.
question? What if the people that are applying, this is just idea, and anybody can shoot it down if they want, honestly. You know, if you are seriously considering doing this, what if you came up and just said, hey, I'm applying, this is why, this is what's important to me. This is why I value our community. This is how long I've lived in our community. And it's like everybody kind of has like a script of things that they say, and they come like during the citizen participation. It's not like an interview. It's just kind of a, basically they're professing that, hey, I'm wanting, you know, I'm applying for this. This is my name. And then after that point, then, you know, the mayor goes through and does whatever they do. And then council members get a chance to talk to the candidates or whatever. But I don't know. I think, I'm not saying it's an interview. It's just kind of getting up and saying, you know, I want to take this step publicly of this is what I would like to do. And so I'm applying for it. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. If you want transparency, then you've got, you know, not an interview, but somebody saying, this is what I want to do. This is why I'm passionate about it. This is what's driving me to put my application in. And then it's kind of a done deal, but at least the public knows. So
Yeah,
I don't know, that would be my idea.
And I don't hate that idea, because if we're saying, hey, you need to show up to one of the meetings to do that, they're gonna have to show up to the meetings afterwards anyway, right? If they were appointed. So I don't have a
Right.
huge issue with that. I kind of like that idea.
It's like pitching, it's like a little
Well,
small
and then-
campaign. You're
Yeah,
pitching-
I mean,
pitching
you're kind of
yourself to the
are.
public.
That would
Yeah.
be smart as a candidate to
And-
want to do that.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing too. It's like, it's also giving people an opportunity. Like if the public's saying there's no transparency or whatever, well, it's up to you if you want to watch the meeting, and, or come to the meeting. And if you don't, or choose not to, then, you know, it was your opportunity to do it, you know? And so there's no behind the scenes stuff. Yes, this person did come forward and say they wanted to do it. So I don't know.
No, I actually like that one. Even
Yeah.
she kind of just took everything Brian said and put it into something tangible.
Good job.
Because Brian had all the ideas. Kristen just came in and slammed it down. No, I would be definitely open to that. I think that's. I mean, I would have done it. Obviously, I was the first one got appointed in the whole charade last time, and you know, I would have been happy to do that.
Yeah.
I would have been fine with it. So.
Well, I think it's something, I mean, essentially, it's something that people could, well, let's say they could almost do it now. But,
Yeah, they could.
yeah, I mean, because it's
open
up to
to
the
public.
person that put their name in. They could show up to the
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
after they put their name in and say, hey, I put my name in for city council. Here's why I want to run. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't do that
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Well, and we had that back when I got appointed. There was 2 or 3 people that did that, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's no shame in that game. I don't
Yeah,
think.
it's very smart
Yeah.
strategy to, you know,
advocate
introduce
for
yourself
yourself.
to the public and, you know,
Absolutely.
as a candidate. I don't know if we can require.
I don't think you can
That's what I was
require it,
saying. I don't think we can make somebody do it.
Yeah.
but we would say we recommend that.
Or now I do think we could require it of a person who is going to be appointed. Like
Yeah.
if we know that this person is going to be, who's going to be put up there for a vote, then we could say, yes, we want you to come in and public comment, or we'll give you a time before the vote to introduce yourself to the public or to the council, or however you want to frame it. But yeah, I do think that would be good. But I don't know if you can require every single candidate to come do
I
that.
don't think we require, but we can encourage it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody taking it serious.
I think the public
Advocate for
would, would appreciate it.
Because I always look at it like a job interview.
Yeah.
You know, and like we're looking at resumes, you share the resumes with us of here's who applied and here's what they look like on paper.
Yeah.
So. Is that clear as mud?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I've got some good marching orders, so we will start working on this and get you.
Okay.
I will, yeah, I'll put together kind of a clean and a dirty version. It'll be a clean and a red line version. It's all gonna be appropriate. But it'll, to show you the changes, and then a clean version for you guys kind of see what the final product will
No
look
tie on it, just goes roads.
With or without the tie?
Now, does this include mayor too? If we have a similar situation happen as last
So
time?
yeah, that's a good question. Do you guys want the same process for a mayor as well, or do you want the mayor to fill out? Because with a mayor, it's the council president taking over.
Yeah.
So if you have a council president step in for a short period, do they go back? They can't go back to
They
being
cannot,
president.
yeah.
We've now filled that vacancy.
Yeah.
So that puts a damper on maybe who wants to be council president because they might,
They might have served a 4-year term and then now.
yeah, they might have
only get-
applied to do a 4-year term as a council member and now they're doing a 2-year term as a mayor and they got to run again.
Yeah.
So there's a fairness aspect there.
As the council president, I would be fine with it just because I wouldn't want to jump into a 4-year without preparing myself for it, beforehand running through the process. Because the mentality, like I said, the couple times I've had to run the meeting, I'm like, I do not want to be thrown into it. If I was ever going to go for mayor, I'd want to
Oh,
prepare myself mentally and everything because there's a lot more that goes into it. So I personally think we probably put the same parameters in. But again, the mayor is probably even more further out of that ever happening, but I think having that safety net there would be good, in my opinion.
When we first started talking about this, I was kind of curious too, like, would the mayor's position be one that we would want to consider a special election? I don't think so because of the cost, but
Yeah.
like for that position, I think it's worth,
I think
maybe
you could probably
consider-
push the date back further and do the
Yeah.
April 30th on the mayor one.
especially because it's just one position too.
And people know what mayor is.
So there's not going to be a consolation
Yeah.
type situation
Yeah.
because there's only one candidate for one spot.
I hear you on pushing the date back, but I think if we're going to try to make this clear, it should be one deadline for everything.
No, and I'm fine with that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if we're going for clarity, let's,
Yeah.
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 Let's have singular
dates.
hallmark.
No, I'm
dates
fine
for
with that.
people.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay.
But I do think throwing it in there is the right thing. So yeah, I think my personal opinion is I'm fine with going with Brian's if that's the easier way to go, but the Leewood way sounds like it would be probably less controversial because we're following in somebody else's footsteps. And then I'm March 1st, I'm fine with, and then 90-day from the day of the resignation from a position
Okay.
would be with a caveat of no applicants, add another 60 days or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking if there's no applicants within 45 days, we just do, the timeline goes away and
Okay.
we kind of leave it open. Because if there's no applicants within 45 days, do we really want to just keep restarting the clock?
I feel like we've had a pretty good
Timeline's
turnout
pretty
though.
moved at that point.
Yeah, we've had, there's been a couple times where it took a while to get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For, not necessarily for council, but like planning commission, a few of the other
Oh,
ones
yeah,
where
those
there was a spot that were like, it'd been a week or two and hadn't had any, and it's like, man. Okay, so.
Okay, cool. I will get you a clean and redlined version.
Tie, no tie.
Wear that tie next time. Get it cleaned up.
No time.
All right. Anything else on that item? If not, we'll go ahead and close the discussion on that and move on to announcements and reports. I'm sure there'll probably be some other staff talking about it, but Fall Festival is coming up at the end of the month. It's the biggest event in town of the year, so my family always enjoys that a lot. The kids love going. It's the weather's been really nice the last couple of years, so hopefully we have good weather again. So definitely encourage everyone to come on out, invite your friends, come with a empty belly, ready to eat lots of good food. That, and then also just want to take time to, honor and recognize 9/11, being this week. I know, at least for me, I remember exactly where I was when the planes hit the towers and everything. And I just remember, standing in disbelief, watching the TV when everything was going down. So just a big thank you to our service members out there, fire, police, and EMS, and then also our military out there fighting for our freedom. So with that, Mr. Young.
I don't really have much. I do want to say today is National Police Women's Day, and we have quite a few in our department. I feel like so.
4, I think.
Yeah. So just wanted to recognize them. Thanks for all you do.
Absolutely. Mr. Van Houten.
No report.
Mr. Peel.
I got two things. I got a postcard mailer this week in the mail about a K68 expansion project in Miami County. It's not in Spring Hill city limits. This is the highway between 169 Highway and Lewisburg. That section is going to have a large expansion to it. So there was a public information meeting about it this week. There's still a website that you can go to look more about it. But I'm sure we have folks in Spring Hill that use that stretch of road every once in a while at least, or frequently. So just to be aware about that. And then, we have, blood drives every 2 months here in Spring Hill. It was started up, the group is called the Spring Hill Lifesavers. But it's usually at the community center, once every 2 months, which allows you, that's kind of the donation window to when you have to wait about 8 weeks before you can donate again. It was started by, Mr. Peterman's family and, a couple other, Spring Hill local, that had some children that were dealing with cancer. And we struggle to hit our quotas every month. It's out there, it's really easy, it takes less than an hour, they give you some snacks. It's not too detrimental, but it's a real easy way to give back and it's really impactful. Sometimes you even get emails after the fact that says your donation went to this person or saved this person or helped this thing. So, it's just something that's kind of become a smaller passion thing of mine. It's during the daytime most of the time. We can't get them to stay here past 6 o'clock, so it's hard for people that work out of town. But if you are in town for the most part of the day, you should really check it out and try and get over there. So.
One other thing I forgot to mention is, I know some people have noticed the contraption going on outside, in the backyard or kind of behind City Hall. So we got a fitness studio going in out there. So it'll be a place that's open to the public to come do different fitness exercises. They're kind of a new modern thing that's going in a lot of different communities. So we were able to get a grant for that. So it will be opening soon.
25th.
Yep, 25th is
25th at 5 p.m. So
yep, grand opening. So yeah, come on out 5 p.m. Check it out. But it will be open to the public after that. So if everybody's driving by wondering what that thing is out there, that's what it is. With that, Mrs. Feedback.
Actually, I just wanted to echo what you said, Mayor, about the recognizing today, and everybody that serves. So I just want to thank you to everybody, military, first responders, everybody. Been thinking about you all a lot today. Also, on the 10th was National Suicide Prevention Day. And so anyway, we in the Kansas City area, we started a campaign called Get the Words Out. We've got trucks that are have quotes in neon lights that are basically some of the first things people say when they call 988. And it's basically, you know, it doesn't have to be scripted when you call 988. It's real people answering, real people calling. And so anyway, that's our campaign that we're doing. The trucks will be in the fall festival. And so I'll be handing out 988 cards just as an awareness for 988. And also on September the 8th, which was last Sunday, was 988 day. So that's the day that 988 is recognized. So anyway, other than that, and then I also echo what Chad says. So in recognition of women that are in law enforcement. So that's all that I have.
Mr. Massey.
No report.
Mr. Lau.
No report.
Chief Henson, thank you again for your service and honor you on, like they said, about Women's Day, National Women's Day. Got anything to add to us?
No, thank you very much.
Mr. Burton.
No, sir.
Mrs. Abel. I remembered your name this time.
One thing I wanted to point out was, I don't know if you guys have been on 199th Street, but there is a dynamic message sign that says that the road is going to be closed starting on September 18th. So that's going to be between Renner and Lackman. And based on what the county says, that's going to be closed for about 3 months for a box culvert replacement. So just wanted to get that message out to everyone that starting on September 18th, the road is going to be closed on 199th Street between Renner and Lackman. That's all I have.
Is that improvement that they were talking about doing out there? Or is it just a repair?
It's just a repair.
Oh, okay, so that's not the improvement.
No, that's not part of either one of the CARS projects that are.
Well, no, I'm talking about the county improvement they were gonna do east of
Yeah, so
Renner.
that is under design right now.
Okay.
So our portion from Ridgeview to Renner is under design by BHC. The portion from Renner to Lackman is currently at the beginning stages of being designed by RIC, Renaissance Consultants. They just finished up the survey and are starting the preliminary design.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk,
No report.
Mrs. Dunn,
No report?
Mr. Spear.
No report.
With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0-0. Have a great night, everyone.